Look into the dappled light of the dense African bushveld or the rocky scree of the high Himalayas, and you are staring directly into a void where one of the most terrifyingly efficient killing machines on Earth is hiding in plain sight. Human culture has long been fascinated by the sheer, unadulterated aesthetic beauty of the leopard, Panthera pardus. We marvel at its rosette-patterned fur, celebrate its graceful fluid movements in wildlife documentaries, and revere it as an exotic symbol of untamed wilderness. But this admiration is born from a fundamental misunderstanding of what this creature truly represents. The leopard is not merely a beautiful big cat. It is a masterclass in solitary evolutionary warfare, a hyper-engineered phantom apex predator designed to infiltrate, dominate, and survive in environments where all other large carnivores collapse into extinction. While lions rely on the crushing, collective social brute force of a pride, and cheetahs gamble their entire survival on fragile, high-speed sprints in wide-open plains, the leopard walks entirely alone. It operates in the dark spaces between these specialists, utilizing a flawless combination of structural biomechanics, absolute stealth, and psychological terror to command a global empire that spans continents. To truly comprehend the unmatched lethality of the leopard, one must first dismantle the intricate, high-performance machinery of its skeletal and muscular architecture. Weighing anywhere from 80 to nearly 200 pounds, a leopard's body is a condensed, hyperdense cylinder of pure, fast-twitch muscle fiber wrapped tightly around a remarkably flexible skeletal frame. Unlike domestic felines or even larger canids whose shoulder blades are structurally rigidly bound, a leopard's clavicle is completely vestigial and its scapula is attached to the spine purely by highly elastic muscle groups. This specific anatomical engineering grants the front limbs an astonishing, near-infinite range of motion, allowing the cat to flatten its entire torso completely against the bare earth until it is no taller than a blade of grass. When a leopard stalks, its center of gravity drops to a microscopic level, transforming its body into a low-slung, kinetic spring that can absorb its own forward momentum, allowing it to freeze mid-stride for hours without a single muscle tremor betraying its position to an eagle-eyed prey animal. The true mechanical genius of this evolutionary design, however, is unleashed the moment the phantom decides to break its silence and strike. A leopard does not hunt by chasing down its target over long distances. It executes a calculated, explosive ambush launch from a distance of less than 10 feet. When the cat spring-loads its massive hind legs, the thick tendons snap forward with a catastrophic release of stored energy, propelling the animal at speeds approaching 40 miles per hour in a fraction of a second. Simultaneously, its paws deploy one of nature's most terrifying weapons arrays, fully protractable, curved claws engineered from highly densified, razor-sharp keratin. Controlled by a specialized network of digital flexor tendons, these claws remain completely hooded and protected within specialized skin sheaths during normal walking, preventing them from ever blunting against rocks or date. The moment impact occurs, these claws lash outward like hydraulic meat hooks, anchoring hundreds of pounds of pulling force directly into the flesh of the prey, ensuring that once a leopard makes physical contact, escape is a mathematical impossibility. This explosive physical power is guided by a sensory processing engine that functions with military-grade precision, transforming the dark, pitch-black midnight wilderness into a brightly lit, highly navigable combat grid. A leopard's eyes are heavily dominated by rod photoreceptors, which outnumber cone cells by an overwhelming margin, granting them a night vision capability that is roughly 6 times more acute than that of a human being. Behind their retina lies a highly developed tapetum lucidum, a biological light-amplifying mirror that captures even the faintest scattering of starlight or moonlight, reflecting it back across the visual cells a second time to render the pitch-black jungle in stark, high-definition contrast. This hypervisual system is backed by an auditory matrix driven by large, dynamic ear pinnae that can independently rotate to capture ultrasonic frequencies up to 65 kHz. A leopard can pinpoint the exact underground tunneling coordinates of a rodent or the subtle, panicked breathing of an antelope hidden deep within a thicket long before the prey even realizes a predator has entered the valley. Yet, it is a creature's tactical intellect and unparalleled climbing mechanics that separate it from every other large feline on Earth. The leopard is the undisputed sovereign of the vertical landscape. Driven by massive, hyperdeveloped forelimb and chest muscles, a leopard possesses the raw physical strength to kill a carcass weighing more than double its own body mass, such as a full-grown yearling kudu or zebra calf, and hoist it vertically up the sheer, vertical trunk of an acacia tree. By anchoring its claws deep into the bark and using its long, thick tail is a dynamic counterweight to continuously adjust its center of gravity. The leopard defies gravity itself. It hoists its prize 20, 30, or 40 feet into the safety of the high canopy, far out of the reach of marauding hyenas and thieving lion prides. To step into the territory of the leopard is to realize that safety does not exist on the ground, nor does it exist in the air. You are wandering through a multidimensional hunting ground ruled by a ghost that monitors your every step from the shadows above. The transition of the sun below the horizon signals profound, calculated shift in the power dynamics of the wild, transforming the leopard from an elusive, sleeping ornament of the high branches into an active, terrifying manifestation of psychological warfare. Operating as a strictly solitary predator means that a leopard cannot afford the luxury of a minor physical injury, a broken tooth, a strained tendon, or a deep laceration received during a reckless hunt is a direct death sentence. Consequently, the leopard has evolved a hunting strategy rooted in absolute calculation, infinite patience, and a deep understanding of prey psychology. It does not simply hunt. It systematically deconstructs the defense mechanisms of its targets, utilizing the cover of pitch darkness to turn the very environment against the animals trying to survive within it. The foundational element of this nocturnal warfare is the art of the silent approach. A leopard's paws are fitted with thick, specialized, shock-absorbing digital pads covered in a velvety layer of microfibers that dampen the sound of its footsteps to absolute zero. As the cat moves through a field of dry, brittle leaves or sharp twigs, it employs a behavioral trait known as perfect registering. With mesmerizing coordination, the leopard places its hind paw precisely into the exact footprint previously cleared by its front paw, ensuring that it never steps blindly onto an unpredictable, noise-making surface. It can take a leopard over 3 agonizing hours to cross a mere 50 yards of open ground, moving only when the night wind rustles a canopy to mask its motion, and freezing into a rigid, statue-like posture the exact millisecond a prey animal lifts its head to scan the darkness. When the distance is finally closed, the leopard does not deploy the chaotic, slashing attacks characteristic of less refined predators. It is an assassin that prioritizes instant, suffocating execution. Exploding from its cover, the cat utilizes its massive body weight to tackle the prey to the earth, instantly wrapping its immensely muscled forelimbs around the animal's shoulders to prevent kicking or lunging. Its jaws, driven by massive temporalis and masseter muscles that exert a crushing force of over 500 pounds per square inch, deliver precise, targeted bite. For smaller prey, the leopard drives its sharp canine teeth directly through the back of the skull, fracturing the vertebrae and severing the spinal cord instantly. For larger, more formidable prey like wildebeest or large antelopes, it locks its jaws in a vice-like grip around the throat or nasal passages, crushing the trachea and cutting off the airflow completely. The prey is rendered unconscious by a lack of oxygen within minutes, dying silently in the dark without ever truly identifying the phantom that brought about its end. Once the kill is secured, the real challenge of solitary survival begins, forcing the leopard to enter a phase of intense tactical management. In ecosystems teeming with larger, highly aggressive kleptoparasites like spotted hyenas, lions, and tigers, a dead carcass on the ground acts as an immediate beacon for trouble. Hyenas possess an olfactory array that can detect the scent of fresh blood from miles away, and they will quickly arrive in cackling packs to overwhelm a solitary cat through sheer numbers. To counter this permanent threat, the leopard executes its signature engineering feat, the tree hoist. Clamping its jaws firmly around the neck of the heavy prey, the cat uses the explosive upward traction of its hind legs to scale the vertical bark of the nearest large tree. This maneuver requires an unimaginable expenditure of pure metabolic energy, as the leopard must balance its own weight, the dead weight of the swinging prey, and the vertical resistance of the tree all at once. Once the carcass is safely wedged into a secure fork of high branches, the leopard can finally relax, transforming the tree canopy into a private, sky-high dining room and fortress. Here, safe from the earthbound reach of lions and hyenas, the cat can systematically consume its meal over several days, stripping the meat cleanly from the bones with a tongue covered in sharp, backward-pointing, keratinous hooks called papillae. These papillae act like coarse sandpaper, allowing the leopard to lick every scrap of muscle tissue off the skeleton with surgical efficiency. From this elevated vantage point, the cat can rest between meals, looking down upon the frustrated predators pacing futilely around the base of the trunk. It is a brilliant behavioral adaptation that showcases how a solitary animal, through sheer intelligence and physical specialization, can outmaneuver entire syndicates of larger, heavier competitors. The true evolutionary genius of Pantheropodus does not lie merely in its localized hunting efficiency, but in an unparalleled, highly plastic genetic blueprint that has allowed it to execute the most successful global colonization of any big cat in planetary history. While lions were systematically pushed out of Europe and Asia, and tigers remained strictly bound to the deep forests and swamps of Asia, the leopard successfully infiltrated and conquered almost every conceivable ecological niche across two massive continents. Their empire stretches from the sun-baked, hyper-arid desert to the Arabian Peninsula to the choking, humid equatorial rainforests of the Congo, and from the open, predator-teeming savannas of East Africa to the sub-zero, snow-choked mountain forests of the Russian Far East. They have achieved a staggering geographic dominance by refusing to become ecological specialists. They are the ultimate generalists, capable of morphing their diet, coat density, and behavior to exploit whatever environment they claim. At the absolute peak of this environmental adaptation stands the most critically endangered and resilient big cat on Earth, the Amur leopard, Pantheropodus orientalis. Inhabiting the brutal, wind-scoured forests of the Russian Far East and northern China, this incredible subspecies has completely discarded the short, sleek coat of its African cousins. To survive winter temperatures that regularly plummet past 40 degrees below zero, the Amur leopard grows a dense, luxuriant winter fur that reaches a thickness of over 7 centimeters, providing an impenetrable barrier against the freezing elements. Its rosettes are larger, more widely spaced, and feature thick black borders that help it break up its outline against both the snow-covered rocks and the skeletal winter trees. Furthermore, its legs have evolved to be structurally longer, allowing it to walk through deep, powdery snowdrift without its belly dragging against the frozen crust, proving that the leopard architecture can adapt to match even the most hostile Arctic environments. In stark contrast to the snow-dwelling giants of the north, the leopards that settle the dense, suffocating rainforests of Southeast Asia took a completely different evolutionary path, culminating in the fascinating phenomenon of the black panther. Melanism, a genetic mutation that causes an overproduction of the dark pigment melanin, occurs across various leopard populations, but in the dense, light-starved tropical jungles of the Malay Peninsula, it has become the dominant phenotype. These melanistic leopards are not a separate species. They are ghosts wrapped in shadow. In the permanent twilight of the jungle floor, where the thick canopy filters out over 90% of natural sunlight, a bright yellow coat is a severe liability. The midnight black fur of the melanistic leopard provides the ultimate tactical camouflage, rendering the cat completely invisible as it weaves through the dark, rotting vegetation. If you look closely at their coats under direct sunlight, you can still see the phantom rosettes hidden beneath the dark pigment, a permanent reminder of the structural adaptability that allows this species to master the dark. This global infiltration was further secured by the leopard's completely uncompromising, opportunistic dietary strategy. While other large carnivores are strictly bound to specific sizes of ungulate prey, the leopard views almost every living creature as a viable source of metabolic fuel. A leopard's menu includes over 100 different species, ranging from massive 400-pound antelopes to tiny dung beetles, rodents, and birds. In the river systems of Africa and Asia, leopards will lie motionless along overhanging branches, plunging their paws into the water to harvest catfish, crabs, and even young crocodiles. In the Rocky Mountain ranges of Pakistan and India, they navigate sheer vertical cliffs with goat-like agility, hunting agile markhor and mountain baboons across terrain that would cause any other big cat to lose its footing and plunge to its death. They do not depend on the stability of a single prey species. If the primary herbivore populations collapse due to drought or disease, the leopard simply shifts its focus to smaller, more abundant organisms, surviving where more rigid predators starve into oblivion. This supreme flexibility has allowed the leopard to withstand the most destructive force the planet has ever seen, the relentless expansion of human civilization. As agricultural fields and expanding cities cut through ancient wilderness zones, lions and tigers are immediately pushed into localized extinction due to their need for vast, undisturbed hunting ranges. The leopard, however, does not retreat. It simply recalculates its strategies, shrinking its home range and modifying its daily schedule to become a completely nocturnal shadow that operates within the cracks of human infrastructure. They learn to avoid human contact with surgical precision, using drainage ditches, abandoned buildings, and agricultural hedgerows as temporary highway networks to travel unseen through heavily populated landscapes, setting the stage for bizarre, high-stakes coexistence that brings a phantom apex predator directly into the heart of the modern world. In the 21st century, the relationship between the leopard and the changing planet has evolved into one of the most surreal, deeply unsettling chapters in modern ecological history. Nowhere is this phenomenon more vividly displayed than in the sprawling, hyperdense megacities of India, most notably Mumbai. Here, a bustling human population of over 20 million people lives packed together in a concrete labyrinth that directly borders Sanjay Gandhi National Park, a small patch of protected forest completely surrounded by urban development. In a development that defies all traditional wildlife logic, this park holds one of the highest densities of leopards found anywhere on Earth. These cats have not merely adapted to the presence of the city, they have systematically integrated Mumbai's urban infrastructure into their primary hunting territory, transforming a high-tech human metropolis into a highly productive, nocturnal hunting ground. To observe a leopard operating within a modern city is to witness a ghost navigating a digital landscape. As the midnight hour approaches and the roaring traffic of Mumbai begins to slow, the leopards slip out from the forest shadows and scale the high concrete perimeter walls. They move with absolute fluid grace through apartment complexes, past security guard kiosks, and down brightly lit alleyways, utilizing complex architecture of air conditioning units, parked vehicles, and overhead pipelines to mask their movements. They possess a flawless psychological understanding of human behavior. They know that humans are visually compromised in the dark and heavily dependent on predictable walking paths. By tracking the exact patterns of human activity, these urban leopards can hunt, travel, and raise their cubs completely unseen within feet of sleeping families, leaving no trace of their presence other than a set of silent paw prints in the dust of the concrete sidewalks. The primary driver of this urban migration is a highly abundant, human-provided food source, domestic dogs and livestock. In many developing megacities, large populations of stray dogs roam the streets at night, scavenging for food scraps in garbage dumps. To a leopard, these feral canines represent a highly nutritious, easily accessible prey base that requires far less metabolic energy to hunt than a wild, hypervigilant deer in the forest. The leopard executes its urban hunts with terrifying precision, dropping silently from overhead roofs or leaping out from dark construction sites to seize a dog by the throat before the animal can even emit a single warning bark. Statistics indicate that the urban leopards of Mumbai consume thousands of stray dogs every year, a behavioral shift that not only fuels the cat's reproduction, but also provides a massive, UN-calculated public health service to the human population by drastically reducing the spread of rabies across the city. However, this close proximity inevitably leads to moments of sudden, violent friction that shatter the fragile illusion of peaceful coexistence. When a leopard accidentally wanders into a crowded slum tenement during the early morning hours, or when a mother cat strikes a human child mistaken for a small prey animal in the dim light of dawn, the city explodes into a state of pure, primal panic. Human mobs armed with sticks and stones quickly surround the cornered predator, creating a high-stress, chaotic theater where the cat's explosive defense mechanisms are unleashed with lethal results. A single cornered leopard can inflict catastrophic injuries on dozens of people in a matter of seconds, using its razor-sharp claws and crushing jaw power to slice through muscle and bone as it attempts to break through the human wall and escape back to the safety of the shadows. Yet, despite these periodic explosions of violence, scientific tracking data has revealed a shocking truth that highlights a leopard's near-supernatural capacity for conflict avoidance. The vast majority of urban leopards live their entire lives without ever attacking a single human being. They actively choose to bypass vulnerable, sleeping people to target domestic animals, demonstrating a high level of calculated restraint that is completely unique among the world's large carnivores. They have calculated the exact cost of human retaliation, understanding that their survival depends entirely on maintaining their status as an invisible, silent ghost within the concrete machine. The urban leopard is a profound living testament to the fact that the boundary between the wild and the civilized is completely imaginary, and that the ultimate phantom predator is already living among us, watching from the darkness just beyond the reach of our streetlights. The final chapter in the global chronicle of the leopard brings us face to face with the ultimate paradox of their existence, a species that possesses the evolutionary resilience to survive Arctic winters and conquer human megacities, yet remains caught in a desperate, silent war against the structural forces of human greed, habitat fragmentation, and genetic isolation. Across their remaining strongholds in Africa and Asia, the Phantom of the Shadows is facing an onslaught that tests the absolute limits of its survival architecture. They are no longer just fighting the claws and teeth of natural rivals. They are confronting an invisible network of wire snares, high-tech poaching syndicates, and the slow, suffocating decay of their ancestral genetic corridors. The most immediate, visceral threat to the leopard's long-term survival is the brutal mechanics of the illegal wildlife trade. In many cultures across the globe, the leopard's beautiful, rosette-patterned fur remains a highly prized status symbol, driving a black market economy that fuels a relentless poaching industry. In the deep forests of Asia, poachers deploy thousands of unselective, high-tension steel wire snares along animal trails. When a leopard steps into these hidden loops, the wire snaps shut around its limb or neck, tightening with every frantic movement the cat makes. For a solitary hunter that depends entirely on physical perfection, the slow, agonizing mutilation caused by a steel snare is a lingering death sentence. Furthermore, their bones, teeth, and claws are systematically harvested to serve as cheap substitutes for scarce tiger parts in traditional Eastern medicine, turning the physical components of nature's finest hunting engine into mere commodities bought and sold in the dark corners of human commerce. Beyond the overt violence of poaching lies a more insidious, invisible crisis that threatens to destroy the leopard empire from the inside out: the loss of genetic connectivity. As human agriculture, superhighways, and industrial zones continue to slice through the wilderness, large leopard populations are systematically fractured into small, isolated islands of habitat. Cut off from the wider genetic pool, these isolated groups are forced into generations of inbreeding, a biological decay that slowly weakens the species' immune systems, causes reproductive abnormalities, and erodes the very evolutionary plasticity that made them global conquerors in the first place. The Amur leopard of the Russian Far East, having shrunk at one point to a wild population of fewer than 40 individuals, stands as a grim warning of how close the phantom cat can come to tipping over the edge into total biological oblivion. To counter this impending collapse, modern conservation science has been forced to shift its strategies, transforming wildlife protection from a simple game of land preservation into a high-stakes, multinational campaign of ecological engineering. Forward-thinking governments and scientific organizations are working to establish vast landscape corridors, stretches of protected, reforested land that link isolated national parks together. These biological bridges allow young, dispersing leopards to safely navigate through human-dominated zones, mixing their genes with distant populations and ensuring that the evolutionary vitality of the species is maintained. Combined with advanced community-based conservation initiatives that compensate local farmers for livestock losses and transform former poachers into highly paid wildlife trackers, humanity is finally beginning to realize that saving the leopard requires a profound shift in our own behavioral architecture. The story of the leopard is an immortal monument to the raw power of solitary evolutionary genius, a narrative that spans millions of years of anatomical perfection, psychological mastery, and unparalleled global expansion. They did not achieve their planetary dominance by commanding the brute strength of a pride or the specialized speed of the plains. They did it by becoming the ultimate generalists, learning to weaponize the darkness, climb past gravity, and slip invisibly through the cracks of whatever world they encountered. Whether navigating the freezing snows of the Amur Valley, stalking prey through the African bush, or walking as a silent urban spectre through the midnight streets of a human megacity, Panthera pardus remains the undisputed sovereign of the shadows, an adaptable, immortal dynasty that will forever walk its own solitary path across the wild spaces of the earth. If this deep dive into the hidden biomechanics, nocturnal warfare, and urban infiltration of the modern leopard completely altered your understanding of this legendary big cat, make sure to leave a comment below with your thoughts. To ensure you never miss our next cinematic journey into the shocking, untamed realities of the natural world, follow this series now. Thank you for tracking the ultimate master of the shadows.